All right, let's talk biological evolution. I know your biology EOC is right around the corner, so we're going to do a super fast, super focused review to make sure you nail this section. No fluff, just the stuff you absolutely have to know. Let's dive in.
So let me ask you a question you've probably wondered about. Why is it that you can take an antibiotic for, say, strep throat, and it works great, but maybe a few years later, that same antibiotic just doesn't cut it anymore? What's going on there? Well, believe it or not, the answer is evolution in action, and we're about to break down exactly how that works. Here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the engine that drives all of this change. Then we'll see that engine working in the real world. After that, we're going to play detective and follow the evidence trails scientists use. And finally, we'll check out the maps they create to chart life's family tree. Sound good? Let's go. Okay, first up, the engine of change. The best way to think about this, especially for your exam, is to imagine natural selection as a recipe. It's not some random, chaotic thing. It actually requires a few very specific ingredients to get started. So what are those ingredients? There are three. First, you need overproduction. Pretty much every species, from bacteria to bunnies, makes way more offspring than could ever possibly survive. Second, you need inherited variation. Just look around you. No two individuals are exactly alike, right? That's thanks to our genes. And third, you get the struggle for survival. Because there's not enough food or space or resources for everyone, life is a constant competition. Now, when you mix those three ingredients together, you get the big one, natural selection. All it means is that the individuals who just happen to have the right traits to win that struggle for survival are more likely to live long enough to have kids and pass on those winning traits. The key thing to remember is that the environment does the selecting. It's not about being the strongest, it's about being the best fit. Okay, so we've got our recipe for natural selection. Now let's put it to work and see how it explains our antibiotic problem from the beginning. This is where the theory gets real. So let's imagine a population of bacteria making you sick. Because of that genetic variation we talked about, they're not all identical. The vast majority of them are totally vulnerable to an antibiotic. But just by a pure chance, a tiny, tiny few might have a random mutation that makes them resistant. Then you take the antibiotic. It's like a targeted strike. It wipes out almost all the non-resistant bacteria. But who's left standing? The resistant ones. And with all their competition gone, they're free to multiply like crazy. And just like that, you've got a whole new population of superbugs. That is natural selection, happening right inside your body. And, this isn't just about bacteria. It's the exact same story for insects that become resistant to pesticides or weeds that start ignoring herbicides. The environment, in this case the chemical, selects for the individuals who can survive it. Of course, it's not always a chemical pressure. Sometimes it's geography. Imagine a group of squirrels gets separated by a river that turns into a massive canyon. The two groups can't interact anymore. Over thousands of years, they'll adapt to their own unique environments and could eventually become two totally different species. So if there's one sentence to burn into your brain for the EOC from this section, it's this one. Favorable traits, the ones that help an organism survive and reproduce, will always increase in a population over generations. That's the bottom line. Okay, seeing evolution happen with bacteria is one thing. But what about the big picture? How do we know that all life evolved over millions and millions of years? Well, scientists have followed a massive trail of evidence. For your test, you'll want to be familiar with these four big ones. The fossil record is like a photo album of life on Earth, showing us how things have changed. Then there's comparative anatomy, where we see that a human arm, a cat's leg, and a whale's flipper all have the same basic bone structure. That's a clue to a shared ancestor. Embryology shows us that as early embryos, fish, turtles, and humans look shockingly similar. But the most powerful evidence of all, it's molecular. It's our DNA. And that's really the core of it. DNA is like the ultimate family record. Scientists can compare the genetic code of any two species, and the more similar that code is, the more closely related they are. It's how we know that humans and chimps shared a common ancestor more recently than humans and, say, kangaroos. So with all this fossil and anatomical and DNA evidence pouring in, how do scientists keep track of it all? How do they organize the epic, branching story of life? Well, they draw maps, or more accurately, trees. Now you're going to see diagrams like these, and it's important to know the difference. Cladograms are simpler. They just show who's related to whom based on shared characteristics. A phylogenetic tree, though, is a bit more advanced. The length of the branches actually means something. It usually represents time. So longer branches mean more time has passed since those species split off from each other. Let's shift gears to a different kind of tool, one for identifying organisms. It's called a dichotomous key. It sounds complicated, but that prefix di just means two. And that's the whole secret. At every single step, you only have two choices. It's really just a process of elimination. You look at your mystery organism, you start at step 1, and you pick which of the two descriptions fits. That choice tells you where to go next. You just keep repeating that process, narrowing it down, until bam, you've got your answer. So whether we're talking about a giant phylogenetic tree that maps out millions of years of history, or a simple dichotomous key that helps you identify a leaf you found, these models are all about one thing: helping us see and understand the incredible, interconnected story of life.
And that's our review. But I want to leave you with a final thought. We've talked about canyons and antibiotics as forces of change. But today, right now, the single biggest environmental pressure on this planet is us, humans. So think about it. What kind of evolution are we causing right now? All right, that's it. Good luck on your EOC. You are going to do great.